Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Career Climb, formerly known as Talks with Julia. On the Career Climb, we spark conversations with industry leaders, executives, and professionals who will share their perspectives on the career landscape, leadership, and workplace culture. But tonight, you're actually just stuck with me, but we're doing a special solo episode this evening. But if this is your first time tuning in, I am your host, Julia Rock, founder and CEO at Rock Career Development. And I am so excited that you are here with me. You could be anywhere in the world with me. Could be anywhere in the world. Look at me messing up Jay-Z lyrics. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. And I appreciate that, especially here on a Friday night. If you are here, I would love for you to stay engaged in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if any of things that I'm sharing with you are resonating in any way. If you have questions, if you're wondering why I'm filming a live stream on a Friday night instead of going out and doing something, whatever that might be, I would love for you to share that in the chat. I'm really excited for tonight's conversation and coming to you solo, simply because there's been an opportunity for me to think through some different leadership lessons. If you've been on LinkedIn with me or on Facebook, I have gone through the process of sharing some of my most important leadership lessons, because leadership is a topic that's so important to me. And I think about the workplace, and when you have the right leaders in the workplace, it transforms the environment and it transforms the employee engagement. It transforms how people want to stay or when people want to stay in the organization. There's so much that comes from leaders being successful and effective in the workplace. And over the past couple of days, I'll be honest, I fell behind a little bit with my challenge, simply because of some travel. And so I thought a great way to bring some of those leadership lessons together, instead of doing them day by day, that I could use this conversation to share one scenario, one situation that I was in as a leader, and how it taught me 8 leadership lessons. So not 1, not 2, not 3, but 8 different leadership lessons from this one scenario. And so I'll go ahead and hop in and share what actually happened. So some years ago, when I was a leader back in my corporate role, I had the opportunity to manage a small team of individuals. And during that time, I had a new member join our team. There was a new person join our team. Happy to have the person on the team. So they were there for about a couple of weeks. And I noticed over those couple of weeks that they joined, I noticed something was a little bit off. I didn't say anything, because when someone joins your organization and they're new, you want to make sure that before you go, running down that, hey, something's got to fix, you've got an issue. It's like, you just want to give it some runtime to make sure you're seeing what you're seeing, and then be able to bring it to their attention. And so after a period of time, I just was like, something is off. One morning, the individual texted me before they got to work and said, hey, Julia, I'm going to be late. I've got to take care of some things with my spouse. Let me take care of that, and then I will come into the office. I said, no problem. I mean, I'm one of those supervisors, managers. I don't care where you work. I know there's a whole lot of hybrid, no grid, remote, like it's too much effort. The truth is, as long as people are getting their work done and they have an opportunity to interact at some point, I don't care how you do it. So I told him, hey, that's fine. You can come, whenever you need to. That's fine. So he takes care of the things at home, and then comes into the office. The individual then comes to my office upon arrival and sits me down and shares a situation that they're now in medically. And it was something that threw me for a loop when I fully understood the depth and breadth of the medical situation. I had never heard about that type of situation while I was in the office, or while I was in that company. And so it kind of threw me for a loop. It caught me off guard. And I didn't really know what to say in that moment, because, again, like I said, I had never heard about it before. And the person kind of just went on and shared what they were experiencing, what they were feeling, how long they had been dealing with the situation, and they went through everything. And I'm the queen of the poker face, so I was able to listen intently while on the inside it's like, what is going on? So, but I had the chance to listen intently, and through that situation, after the individual shared with me, I told them what their next steps were. Now, for someone, if you were a leader and you are in a situation that you have never been in before, you've never heard of before, you normally kind of get knocked off your get knocked off your rocker a little bit, because like, how do I handle this? The person is expecting me to handle this in a certain way because I'm the boss and I should know. And I honestly, at the time, didn't know. But I provided the support in that moment and then shared the next steps. And I want to pause there to tell you a few of the lessons that I learned even up until that point. And then we'll keep going. The first thing that I want to share about that is that trust is currency as a leader. Trust is currency. Trust is so important when you are in a leadership position. I think about the fact that if I had not developed that level of trust with that individual, they would not have felt comfortable coming to talk to me about what they were dealing with. As leaders, we have to think about the importance of building that rapport and building that trust so that people can come and speak with us openly. Our team members are willing to share what they're dealing with versus us trying to figure it out on our own, or they're hiding things from us and we don't find things out until later on, until it's too late, until something more drastic has happened. And for me, I felt really good that they trusted me enough to walk into my office with everything they were dealing with, that medical situation, and kind of just lay it on me. Whether or not I knew how to deal with it would come at a different point, but just having that trust and the person being comfortable sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly, it really made a difference. The second lesson that I learned in that moment was your ability to listen makes a huge difference. You don't always have to talk. You don't always have to talk. Sometimes we feel like we need to listen to respond as a leader, that someone's sharing something with us and we're loading responses into the chamber, ready to shoot one off, instead of giving the person the free space to share, to be open, to lay out all the cards. And then we can take from that information and then ask thoughtful questions, give a thoughtful response. When you're leading, your role is not always just to drive the boat, right? Sometimes you need to, or it is to drive the boat, but before you decide what direction you're going in, you need to understand what the problem is first. You don't want to veer to the right because you think this is what the person is saying, when if you had listened, you would have needed to go in an opposite direction. And so my ability to listen to the individual, let them talk it through, it made a difference, one, for them to feel comfortable continuing to share. And it also answered more questions that I had in my mind. If you remember at the beginning of the story, I shared that I had noticed that there were things that were off. There were things that I was just like, something just doesn't seem right. Am I missing something? And then when they came to talk to me, all the pieces that I had been thinking about, they all fell into place. So had I not given the person the space initially and had gone after them, and if I also hadn't given them the space to talk to me and share, there's things that I may not have found out. And so that ability to listen, you don't have to load up responses. You can just listen and give your people the space they need. And so moving on with the story, what I found was like I said, I was confused as to what to do next. I was confused as to how do I handle this? And so instinctively, I shared based on my knowledge, based on what I knew and the information I knew at the time, I shared, hey, this is the step that you need to take now, and then we'll work from there. And a lesson that I learned from that is that your instincts are stronger than you think. Your instincts are stronger than you think, especially when we get into leadership positions. We may sometimes question, do we have the ability to handle a situation? If something pops up, are we going to know how to handle it? Because no assessment, no leadership course can prepare you for every single thing that's going to come your way as a leader. You have to have a certain level of instinct and a certain level of care for other people in order to know how to act when situations that are unfamiliar pop up. And so in that moment, I honestly didn't know what to do. I had no idea what the next steps were, but I trusted my gut. And I said, here's what we're going to do. But but moving forward with the story, after the individual left my office, I went and I reached out for help. I reached out to my past supervisor and then actually a member of my team who was more senior. And I couldn't share the specific details with them, but I was able to provide kind of a hypothetical with enough details that I could get some guidance as to where to go. And another lesson I'll share is your team has more experience and expertise and skill and insight than you give them credit for. Even when you join a team as a leader, you don't know everything. You don't have, and especially if you're new on the team, you're new in the location, you don't know everything. And tapping into the people on your team who do know, it goes an extremely long way. It goes an extremely long way. One, it builds the rapport with your team members because they see that, hey, you're not coming in just trying to be the boss and trying to be a dictator, right? And tell them what to do. You're open to listening, but it also shows that you value the people on your team, that you value what they can offer the organization. You value those years of experience that you don't have, that you value the history and the background that you don't have. So trusting in your team members and asking those on your team who have some insights for help, it makes a big difference. And they have more knowledge than you give them credit for. And I was fortunate to talk through that situation with my supervisor or my former supervisor and another member of my team. So they were able to give me some perspective on what to do next. But then I had something else to think about. That person was just one member of my team. I had a whole group of other people that I needed to be responsible for. And given the person had just recently joined the organization, if they now had a health challenge, what was going to happen to all the members of my team? Because that means the work would fall on them. But because it's a medical situation, they can't know what happened. So I was tasked with trying to figure out, how do I handle this situation with my team? And how are we going to manage through this challenge of now having an open seat and trying to balance that work amongst the desks? So what I do give credit to is another lesson where finding the right people who work well together is more important than finding, say, the absolute best, smartest coming from, the best schools all over the world. I had the most phenomenal team. I'll just be honest about that. But more holistically speaking, or generally speaking, it's less important for you to find the best, the brightest, the top of the class who may not mesh well together versus finding people who share the same values as your organization, who can fit into the culture, who understand the dynamics and can work well together. The reason why that was so important was because once I kind of shared, hey, this individual will no longer be with us for a period of time, and we're going to have to rebalance, I expected the team to be, whether frustrated or what have you. They were just concerned as to, is everything okay? We're happy to pick up the work and we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we can do and not do. But there wasn't any frustration. They weren't like, okay, well, why is this happening? I don't want to do any more work. They were willing to figure it out and were just more concerned with their teammate. But that comes from you as a leader making sure that you have the right people in your organization who will work well together, who understand the culture, and They understand the importance of working together as a team instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to work on my thing over here. All I'm concerned with is my own work and my own success, my own progress, and everyone else has to figure it out. You want to have people to say that my success is important, but my success is also tied to the success of my team. If I'm not a good teammate, am I really successful in my role? And seeing that response from the team, it warmed my heart, but two, it also helped me to calm down. And, again, if this was a situation I hadn't dealt with before, but seeing how my team handled it, it calmed me down and let me know that everything was going to be okay. And so continuing with the story here, we continued to support that individual while they were out of the office and they were getting the medical treatment that they needed. But what was tough was that at the end of the day, the person had to finally and permanently leave the organization. And I remember feeling really bad about that because I didn't want the person to leave. But things didn't work out. We tried our best. They tried their best, but we couldn't maintain the employment relationship at the end of the day. And that got me to thinking about the fact that as a leader, we may feel like we failed in situations, but if you have tried your best, if you have given a situation your all, if you have pulled every string and you have tried to tap into every possible resource and nothing is working, or something doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. And as leaders, we take things to heart a lot of times because we want to, especially if you're a strong leader or someone who cares about your people, you take things personally. You want to see everybody on your team succeed. You want everything to go well. You want everything to turn around. And sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't. And what do you do in that situation? You have to reflect on, in life, not everything works out the way that you would want. But as long as you have shown care and support for your team, if you have advocated on their behalf, if you have stood up for them, if you have stood in the way for them, removed obstacles for them, you have tried your very best, there's nothing more that you can do then. And you can have peace. Even if you're unhappy about how the situation turns out, you can have peace in knowing that you gave it your very best. You can have peace in knowing that that individual saw you fight for them. They saw you step in and be supportive and listen. They saw all of those things. So even when things don't work out, they know that they weren't left out on an island by themselves. They weren't left out there to fend for themselves and figure things out. They had someone. Even if it turns out to be unsuccessful, they had someone who was willing to support them and do the best they could. And for me, that was a little piece of comfort after seeing how things would turn out with the individual's job and that we weren't able to maintain the employment relationship. And so the last couple of lessons I want to share is that empathy takes you a long way as a leader. When you don't know what to do, but you're willing to put yourself in someone else's shoes, it helps to carry you the rest of the way. And what do I mean by that? When that individual came into my office and shared their story and shared the situation that they were now facing, as I mentioned, I had no idea what to do. But what I did do was place myself in their situation. If I was dealing with this, what kind of support would I need from my leader right now? And that's where the instinct, and that's where some of these other things come into play. But it starts with placing yourself in the shoes of the person on the other side of the table. Each of us wants someone who's willing to listen. Each of us wants somebody who's willing to at least identify with, or at least understand, or do their best to understand where we're coming from and what we're going through. Even if we don't absolutely have the same situations happen to us, at least you being willing to say, let me think about how you might feel in this moment, what you may be experiencing, how this is impacting you. Let me at least try my best to understand. And honestly, me taking that time to, while I was listening to them relay the health condition and relay everything that they were going through, and kind of they went through, it was about 30 minutes worth of things that they wanted to share. As I was listening, I put myself in their shoes to say, what would I do now? I have a family. I have, I just started this role. I have so many things that are happening, and this is where I'm at right now as well. How would I have felt if I was in that position? What would I do? What would I want my boss to say? And that really guided me to help me get through that moment of I don't know what to do. When you let your empathy shine through, when you let your heart shine through, when you let your compassion shine through, it doesn't mean that you're being disingenuous. That doesn't mean you're being overly nice. That's not what leading with compassion means, or leading with empathy. It does mean that you're taking the time to think about what's happening to the other person sitting across from you. Even if you have to give them tough news, even if it's a difficult situation, being willing to put yourself in their shoes and see where they are coming from, that allows the conversation to go a little bit easier and gives the other person the confidence that, hey, I have this person's support, that they're going to be there for me. And it also gives you a compass. It gives you a compass to navigate tougher situations. And the last thing I want to share, the last lesson, is giving yourself some grace. Giving yourself some grace. I remember when I shared with the individual, here are your first next steps, and they left my office, and speaking with my former boss and another employee on my team, I remember saying to them, I feel a little bit lost here. I don't know what to do. And they both said, well, you've got to give yourself some grace and some space because you've never dealt with this before. So let's try to find a solution. But beating yourself up about this, one, is not going to solve anything. And two, is unnecessary because it's not something that you've navigated. And so often as leaders, we feel like if we don't have the answers, or if we don't have the prepackaged professional way of doing something, if we can't go straight to the solution right away, and we don't come across as knowledgeable about it, we beat ourselves up, forgetting that we're human, forgetting that we're not robots, forgetting that being on a leadership journey, it's still a journey that you're on. It's not a destination. You don't get to some sort of mountaintop when you become a leader. It is still a journey in your career, professionally, and it's also still a personal journey. You're still learning and growing. You're learning to understand yourself, how you navigate different situations. There's one way that you handle things when you're an individual contributor, and then when you step into managing people, there are a whole host of new situations that you encounter. And while there's so much that you've learned in your career up until that point, there's a whole new frontier of stuff that you have to learn when you step into that level. And so giving yourself some grace and some space to learn, to grow, to stumble, to fumble, that will, one, take the pressure off of you in your leadership journey. It will take the pressure off of you in your leadership journey, and also give you the motivation and the courage and the push to keep going, to keep growing, so that you can continue to impact people in your organization and also continue on your own path to success. And so with that, I want to say thank you for listening to my 8 leadership lessons. So let's quickly recap a couple of them, or I'll actually go through all of them. 1, trust is currency as a leader. When your team does not trust you, they're not going to be willing to share things with you, and the things that you actually need to know from them, and the questions you need answered. If they don't trust you, it'll be hard for them to share that information. 2nd, your ability to listen. It makes a huge difference. You don't always have to talk. That is not always your job. Your job may just be to listen and to provide support, silent support for a person in that moment. 2nd, your instincts are stronger than you think, right? When you have a situation that pops up, your instincts, because of what you may have learned, because of your empathy, because of your resourcefulness, your instincts will allow you to spring into action, even if you don't feel like you've had this formal leadership training. Number 4, your team has way more knowledge than you give them credit for. Your team has way more knowledge than you give them credit for. They have history, they have background, they've whatever they've been through in their own individual journeys, they're bringing that to the team. And especially if you're coming in new, even if you've been a leader before, but you're new in this organization, there's a lot that you don't know. And so being willing to lean on your team members and take some of the insights from them can also make a difference. Number 5, empathy takes you such a long way as a leader. When you don't know what to do, but you're able to place yourself in someone else's shoes, that is what guides you to a solution, and you figure your way out. If you lead with empathy, if you lead with heart, if you lead with compassion, that can guide you to the right solution for that situation. Number 6, you are not a failure, even if the situation doesn't work out. If you have tried your best, if you have supported, if you have advocated, if you have sought to remove every possible obstacle, and things just do not work out, that is okay. You're not a failure. It's just a part of life and part of the fact that everything doesn't always work out the way that we want to, despite our best efforts. But it's how we handle those situations when they don't work out. Number 7, it's not just about picking the brightest people, but people who work well together, who understand your organizational values and the culture, and are willing to support one another no matter what the situation is. As I mentioned, I had an amazing team that wasn't frustrated with me when the work had to come back onto their desk as we tried to figure out what was going to happen with that individual. I had some of the smartest folks on my team, but more importantly, I had people who were committed to working together as a team. So they could have easily said, well, this is not my problem. I'm getting paid to do this. But the conversation was like, hey, we're willing to step in and support. We just want to make sure our colleague is okay. And then lastly, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. When you are going through a leadership journey, when you're going through situations that you're not familiar with, it's easy to get caught up and say, I should be doing this. Why don't I know how to do this? Oh, I'm not handling this well. I'm failing. It's easy to get caught up in that. But remember, you're a human being. You're not artificial intelligence. You don't have all the answers, right? And I know that sometimes certain things will cause you to question, hey, am I good at this? Am I the right person for this job? I'll tell you, in that moment, I had a moment of, man, am I the right person for this job? I don't know if I'm cut out to handle these situations. But the truth is, you are the person cut out to handle the situation. But you have to give yourself the grace and space to stumble, to fumble, to make a misstep in order for you to learn. My favorite piece of career advice that I have gotten is, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. I got that piece of advice probably about, I think it was 2006, maybe 2007 or so. And that has stuck with me for the rest of my career. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. And so give yourself some grace, give yourself some space in order to know that you're just growing on your journey. And there are people alongside you, the people that you think have it together, the senior leaders, the execs, they're going through the same kinds of challenges. Why? Because they haven't encountered everything. I don't care how senior of a leader you are. I don't care how long you've been an executive. You have not experienced everything that is possible in the workplace. And so you're constantly going to be hit with new scenarios. But again, it's how you show up to those situations, how you manage through those. That's what's important, even if you don't have the answer right then. Are you willing to admit you don't have the answer? Are you willing to ask for help? Are you willing to take a step back from the situation and maybe let someone else step in and handle it? Those are all other options. And that's all about how you manage through a situation, even if you don't know what to do from top to bottom. So give yourself some grace. It also will protect your mental health and well-being so that you do not carry the weight of being perfect and being a superhero when it's not necessary. And so with that, I want to say thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Career Climb. We will be back at our regular time next Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. But if you want to get in touch with me to learn a little bit more about how you can effectively navigate your leadership journey, perhaps you've been in some tough situations yourself. I would love to hear from you, and I would love for us to work together. So you can send me an email at hello@rockcareer.com, or you can schedule time with me at rockcareer.com/consult. Or you can send me a DM on whatever platform you're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you might be. You can also send me a DM there, and I would love to talk to you. But thank you again for watching. Hopefully this story about one story, 8 leadership lessons, you were able to find some nuggets of wisdom. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.